Today, I'm going to take you down and we're going to talk about P&L mastery, navigating financials for restaurant success. We all want success. Luke and I want you to be successful. We want to give you the tools, training, and coaching available to get those goals done so you can actually start making more and working less in your restaurant. That's my goal. As a restaurant coach, my goal is to help you make more and work less in your restaurant. I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty good goal, right? So
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to you? Sounds good to everybody, right?
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Right. So let's start off with a quote. This is my favorite quote. You hear me say this a lot. All business problems are people problems. Most of those people problems are you. Hate to tell you that, but it's the honest to God truth. It's sometimes we're doing the same thing over and over again or expecting different results. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, that is the definition of insanity. Doing the same things over and over again and thinking you're going to get different results. It doesn't work like that. So I always tell people that, listen, let's try some new stuff. My job as a coach is to give you tools, new tools, so that you actually have an opportunity to explore new options. When you have new options, you're actually going to see new results. And when you get new results, you're going to really, really like what you see. So that being said, hey, stick around to the end. I do have a gift for everybody who stays for today's session. Let's go over the rules real quick. If you've been on my calls, these webinars every week, same rules. Number one, have some fun. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. There's two options to ask questions. You either just ask them in the chat, or there's also on this webinar, there's a button on the bottom that says Q&A. You can ask your questions in the Q&A, and we'll make sure we get to them. Luke is my co-pilot here. He will be fielding questions, making sure that we're on track. If anything gets overlooked, Luke will wave me down like a red flag on an Indy 500 thing and say, Donald, there's a pit stop we have to make. So we are going to go down this thing. Remember to take notes, okay? And number three, take action. If you don't apply what you've learned, then you really haven't learned anything. Knowledge is not power. Application of knowledge is. And then, of course, every once in a while, you're going to hear me say the words hashtag WTSD. What does WTSD mean? Of course, everyone who's been on these calls knows exactly what that means. It means write this shit down. These are the gold nuggets. If we've never met before, this is the first time you're on the Wednesday webinar, I'm Donald Burns. I am the restaurant coach. I am a recovering restaurant owner. I have also been a consultant for multiple big billion-dollar brands, US Foods, Shamrock Foods, Cisco Foods. I've done a lot of consulting over the years. I'm also a chef. I was a chef when I had my own restaurant. My father trained me to be a chef. I was also a chef with Wolfgang Puck for a number of years. I'm also a restaurant investor. I'm also an author, most famously known for the Your Restaurant Sucks trilogy. Your Restaurant Sucks, Your Restaurant Still Sucks, Your Restaurant Culture Sucks. And my newest book just came out, Savage Restaurant Success. And if you're looking here, my newest book will be out next month. It's called Ingredients. It's the one on the bottom next to me. And that's coming out end of June. And there's also going to be a really cool program that goes with it too that we're going to probably talk about. And I'm going to see if I can get you guys some access since you're here on the webinar stuff too. Since you're dedicated to learning more, I want to make sure I give you some more tools, training, and resources to make things available for you. I'm also a former member of the U.S. Air Force pararescue teams. Like a lot of people, I started my very first restaurant age 30. I thought I knew what I was doing because I had experience in restaurants. It did not start out that way. I was really, really shocked because, hey, I was a pretty decent chef. I won some awards in Santa Fe, worked with some pretty famous chefs. I thought opening a restaurant was a no-brainer. How hard can it be, right? Well, actually, it was a lot harder than I thought. I didn't understand there was a difference between running a restaurant and building a profitable brand. I was very, very fortunate that I got a mentor who set me on the path that I am today. He's taught me some of the fundamental frameworks I'm going to teach you that can also liberate you from working in your restaurant to working on your restaurant, which is a simple goal. So what if I showed you some simple ways to read a P&L? How about reading a P&L like Neo reads the Matrix? Okay. And then you can harvest more profits. I will tell you right now that understanding the P&L and be able to not only just read a P&L, but to dissect it and understand what are these numbers telling me? Because I will tell you, every number tells a story. Every number tells a story, and that story has an ending. either a good ending or a bad ending, depending how you interpret it. Okay. So please, please. Oh, Nathan said blood wings. Yeah, I got blood wings when I went to airborne school. If you don't know what blood wings are, when you land after your first jump, they give you your airborne wings and they ask you, do you want blood wings? And I was the first in line and I didn't know. And I said, yeah, sure. And they just basically take the wings and they slam them into your chest. They have like these two little pins on the back and they stab it into your chest and you get these little blood wings. I didn't like, ow, I didn't know that was going to happen. But yep, I got blood wings. I didn't know what they were. I just, yeah, sure. Sounds good. I want them. So today we're going to talk about, I digress. Let's talk about P&L. So let's talk about this combination lock. If I gave you a 3-digit combination lock and I said, open the lock, it would be very, very hard to open the lock without the combination. Granted, there are 1,000 different variables to open a 3-digit combination lock. But if I gave you the lock and I told you the number and I told you the order to go in, you could open them every time. Well, when I had my first restaurant, my mentor opened the world of possibilities up to me when he showed me this framework. He wrote down on a BevNap. I have this BevNap to this day. It's in my video office, my video studio. He wrote down 3 words: people, product, process. And he said, Donald, the secret is not the people, product, process. It's the order in which you put the people, product, process in. When you have them in the right combination, they always work and it always opens up. It is always people, product, process. Now, our accelerator program that we offer actually takes you down and teaches you the 3P framework step by step by step. Because I'm telling you, when you understand where the numbers are, where the money's at, you can actually liberate yourself from from having your restaurant run and ruin your life to the point where you can actually start making some money and you can start really, really digging into the things that are going to help you break free. Okay. That being said, what we're going to talk about today is in the accelerator program, we have the people, product, process. Each lock has a series of locks inside of it. So in the people part, it's always about strengths, your team strengths. Then we talk about culture. We talk about hiring. Then we move into the product part. It's always food costs, then menu, then marketing. And then the process part, it's always like I always say, process is protection. It's always system, strategy, and profitability. Today, I'm going to take you down the rabbit hole a little bit and some of the stuff we teach in the Profit Clinic. Now, the Profit Clinic is 10 hours. So I don't have 10 hours to take you through everything in the Profit Clinic, but I'm going to show you some really, really cool stuff that's going to at least get you on the right direction, get you going in the way I need you to go. Fair enough? Okay. Start off with a quote. Profit is not something to add on at the end. It's something to plan for in the beginning. There's a famous quote up there. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's the same thing with your numbers. You have to have a plan for financial acuity, and you have to have a plan for financial stability, and you have to have a plan for financial growth. To do that, we have to understand numbers. If you want more money, you got to watch the numbers. Fair enough? Okay. Talk about P&L mastery. All right. Understanding your numbers. And in the world of restaurants, I mean, we focus so much on creativity and the essence of a great dining experience. The language of numbers remains a constant and crucial battle cry, right? You are the steward. You are the leader of your organization. You hold the reins to orchestrate where revenue, where cost, and where profits dance in this kind of symphony that you got going. Today, we're going to kind of embark on a little voyage that's going to really unravel the mystery behind those cryptic financial statements. I'm going to decode the significance of profit and loss. I'm going to empower you with tools to wield numbers to your advantage. And as we kind of dive into this exploration, I want you to remember that exceptional service is great. Amazing food is fantastic, but a perfectly managed P&L statement fuels sustainability and prosperity, right? Hashtag write that shit down. A perfectly managed P&L statement fuels sustainability and prosperity, and we all want you to be prosperous. Luke and I, our mission, our goal is for you to be prosperous, to have the restaurant and the life that you desire, right? So let's dig into this sucker, shall we? Okay. Oh, did I skip a slide? All right. All right. Today we're going to kind of demystify P&L statements. I'm going to take you a little bit. P&L statements can say a lot. All right. And here's the thing about a P&L statement. It tells a story. When I look at P&L statements, like when members send me their P&L statements, and most of my members send me their P&L statements on a monthly basis, it tells me a story. It tells me what's going on. It also tells me what's not going on. Sometimes when I look at a P&L, it's not so much what the numbers say, it's what the numbers don't say sometimes. That's why you want to look at your P&L like a detective, almost like CSI. Like the crime scene tells you a little bit of the story, but there's more behind the scenes of the crime scene that tells you. Same thing with your P&L. As we kind of dig into this stuff, we're going to talk a little bit about cash flow. We're going to talk about how this ebb and flow of funds dictates the pulse of your operation. We're going to talk about operational costs. That's kind of like the silent architect behind your equilibrium. We're going to talk about how to dissect cost from labor to marketing. We're going to talk about benchmarks. We're going to comprehend how pricing strategy determines how much room you have for innovation and growth. And just kind of like an alchemist, we're going to unlock the secrets behind your restaurant's break-even point. And if you've never talked about break-even point, I'm telling you, it's a magical number that holds the key to survival and prosperity. So if you're ready to emerge from this voyage with a financial, like I'm going to give you kind of like a mini MBA today about your numbers, that's going to actually help you build a foundation for your restaurant dreams. And we're going to kind of give you a path to a financially robust restaurant, one where your creativity, that, you know, I would say that chef shit and your financial acuity all kind of come together and fuse together seamlessly, and it's going to propel you towards excellence in both your restaurant and your life. Because I'm telling you right now, when your business is happy, everything else in your life is happy too. Everybody can say, yeah, give me a, oh yeah, I can understand. I relate. Yeah. Me. Yeah. If you understand that, like when my business is good, life is good. When my business is bad, life is bad. So let's break this down, shall we? Lesson 1.1, introduction to P&L statements. So what exactly is a P&L statement? Well, a profit and loss statement is also called an income statement, right? It serves as a financial snapshot, right? And it's a very, very powerful snapshot too. It could be a specific time frame. Normally, typically, most restaurants do it every month. I like, just so you know, I like to look at P&Ls on a weekly basis, if possible. If you're looking at them at a quarterly basis or a year basis, you are pretty much dead, and you need to change that right away because that's like way too long. It's like playing the Super Bowl game and being the coach and not calling a play and then wondering how come you lost. Be like me going to Luke. Hey, Luke, how come we lost the game? Did you call any plays? No, just kind of let the game happen. Let it unfold as it would. Well, how'd that work out? That didn't work out too good. All right, we should call some plays. Your P&L statement is like your playbook, lets you know what kind of plays to call. So it's usually a comprehensive layout of your revenue, cost, expenses, and then it determines what's known as net income. A concise report acts like a compass. Hashtag write that down. A concise P&L is a compass, and it guides you. It tells you what to do if you know how to read the compass. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So when we're talking about P&Ls, there's a couple of things on a P&L we want to understand. There's 5 vital components of a P&L. Number one is, and we're going to break it down like looking at the top of your P&L, going to the bottom. So the top is revenue sales. That's the top line. All right, this is revenue. That's sales. That's money coming in. After that, usually we go into prime cost or cost of goods. Prime cost, I like my P&Ls to break down my prime cost right after revenue. So it normally goes revenue, then it goes into prime cost. Prime cost is my food cost and labor cost. I like that down. Then it gives me my gross profit. So prime cost is a huge indicator of where I'm at financially and what is like I would say the heartbeat of my restaurant. There's certain numbers we look at on prime cost. 65 is like the line in the sand. 65%. If you're at 65% or higher, you're bleeding out. The higher above 65, the faster you're bleeding out. Don't worry. I've had people who started with me that had a 143% prime cost. I mean, not just bleeding, hemorrhaging, calling me every week crying. I mean, horrible, horrible situation. But with patience, persistence, the right tools, the right training, and right coaching, got her down to where now her prime cost is 53%. She makes a ton of money and she's happier than ever. So it can be fixed. Don't think that, oh, Jesus, Donald, my prime cost is 140% or 120%. It's over for me. It's not over. It's only over if you throw in the towel, right? Luke and I are willing to work with you and help you get through this stuff. But you got to take the tools, right? You got to apply the tools. You got to get some training. You got to get some coaching to go in the right direction. Right? And then, of course, after we have those three, after the gross profit, the other two areas we look at, of course, your operating expenses that we call the bottom line. And then, of course, the very, very bottom of that P&L is your net income. This is how much we're making. And again, the national average for restaurants is only 4%. So after they go through their whole P&L, got all those great sales, things are looking great. Then you take out your prime costs, you take out all your operating expenses. That net income is the bottom line. And that's where we want to start improving that metric and moving it up. P&Ls come down to two aspects. And I want you to think of your P&L as two parts. There is the top line and there's the bottom line. The top line is basically growth. The bottom line is protection. When you're looking at a P&L, I will tell you now, I've identified 78 top line variables and 53 bottom line items. Most people, when they look at their P&L, they just look at like there's maybe 5-6 things they look at. There's a lot of variables that contribute to your top line growth and your bottom line protection. What I like to do with all my clients is we basically have this philosophy, and you want to write this down. You want to adopt an 80-20 mindset on your P&L. 80% of your focus as an owner is top line growth, 20% on protection. And then your team, your hourly team, should be flipped. 80% of their focus should be on bottom line protection, only 20% on top line. Why do we do this? I have restaurants that start with me that are doing $3-4 million in sales. Man, they got the top line down, they got the growth down, but they're only making 2% profit. All right, you dropped the ball on the bottom line. So we want to make sure we have divide and conquer mindset. I want to focus on top line and a little bit on bottom line just to make sure I'm not bleeding out. And I also want to make sure that my team's focused on bottom line more. They're protecting my assets while I'm focused on the top. So if you do this divide and conquer 80-20 mindset, it will change your game and you won't find yourself in the boat where when everyone's so focused on growing, and Luke can back me up on this, the restaurants call him all the time. Hey, Luke, man, we need more traffic. I need more people in the restaurant. All right. Hey, you know, and I'll tell you right now, Luke and Michael and the team at SkyTel are masters at getting you traffic. That's no problem. They'll turn a couple switches on. They'll drive some traffic. They'll set up some funnels. They can get you people in your place. But man, if you're building that top line, but you're still bleeding out in the bottom line, really, I mean, come on. Why don't we make some money too while we're also growing that top line? So I want you to focus a little bit on top line, but I want you to focus a little bit on bottom line. And your team should be the opposite. They should be focused 80% on the bottom line. Fair enough. Everyone got that down? Right, write that shit down, right? What's the ideal prime cost? Ideal prime cost depends on your restaurant. So 65 and higher is bleeding out. 60 to 65, you're typically, now these are, I'm gonna give you some rough estimates because it really depends on what your bottom line of your expenses are on your P&L, but I'll give you some rough numbers just so you have a kind of target. How's that? If your prime cost is 60 to 65%, all right, so like 60 to 64%, you'll make the national average, which is usually anywhere from 2 to 6% profit. At 57% prime cost to 60% prime cost, you should be able to make anywhere from 8 to 12% profit. From 55 to 57% prime cost, you should be able to make 12 to 15% profit. And if you're under 55% prime cost, you should be able to make 18 or higher percent prime profit. Fair enough? Cool. 80% of the team on the bottom line should be focused on protection stuff. That's like waste, controls. There's all kinds of things. So when we do this P&L, like this is a mind map we use. So people in the Accelerator program get access to this mind map. This mind map took me like 10 years to develop. And it basically breaks down top line and bottom line for you. And it'll tell you exactly spot by spot what the bottom line should be on. Okay. And I'll give you section by section what the top line should be on too. But you just want to like focus top line, bottom line. Okay. That's how you want to divide it up. Right. Now a P&L, there's two things you need for a P&L. And I usually use the National Restaurant Association. They have a uniform system of accounts for restaurant. You want to adopt the uniform system of accounts for restaurants because restaurants are unique beasts. And you also want to adopt what we call a restaurant P&L format. The restaurant P&L format is critical because it is a detailed P&L for a restaurant, not that QuickBooks crap that your accountant's going to give you that lumps everything together and now you don't know where all your money's at. You want a detailed P&L, right? You want a detailed P&L. You want a uniform systems of account for restaurants, which tells you what's the GL code, general ledger code, everything goes under. And then you need a detailed P&L, especially this one on the far right that says detailed P&L, because I can look at this and I can tell you exactly within like 4 minutes where the money's at. Because this thing is like, once you learn how to read this detailed P&L, it's like Neo reading the damn Matrix, and I can tell you exactly where the money's at. I can tell you what's too high, what's too low, and we use what we call benchmark reports to understand what framework should I be at, what are the parameters for my percentages for each line item on my P&L. If you do not have a detailed P&L, you are bleeding out money. You need a detailed P&L just like this, okay? A detailed P&L. Cool, all right? That's what you need. You need a detailed one. So why P&L statements are vital to your restaurant's profitability? Number one, when I have a detailed P&L, it helps me make informed decisions. Because if I have a deep, comprehensive P&L, it's going to help me make better decisions. It's going to tell me about patterns, areas of concern, and it's also going to tell me highlight opportunities for growth. It's also going to spot trends. So when I look at your P&L, I can tell you by looking at trends like, all right, that's trending down. You've been doing good. We're getting the labor down to 12% there in the kitchen. It should be around 11. You should have certain targets for every area of your P&L. This is where working with a coach is so powerful, because when you work with a coach, they're going to help you set up targets based on what your brand is, what your restaurant is, and what I've worked with. I mean, I've worked with almost 3,000 restaurants over 14 years. I've seen a lot of different P&Ls over the years. I can tell you by looking at your P&L where it has to be in every restaurant. P&L is a little bit different based on your concept. My breakfast places run a totally different P&L than my pizza places, which run a different P&L than my taco places, run a different P&L than my bistros, which run a different P&L than my steakhouses. Okay. And then I can actually identify underperforming areas. So there's going to be areas on your P&L that's going to tell me about opportunities, underperforming menu items, inefficient operational practices, unnecessary cost. Oh, I see so much unnecessary cost in the P&L. It's like, where's all that money going? I know exactly where it's going. I can tell you 100% confidence. If you gave me a fully detailed P&L like the one I use, I could save you probably anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 in about a 20-minute phone call, just by looking at your P&L. It's crazy how much people bleed out money because they don't look at their P&Ls. And they don't look at their P&Ls effectively. They don't look at them looking at the right things at the right time. So P&L statements are so powerful. So why are they vital? Because also it helps us with known as strategic planning. P&L statements serve as my planning guide. Based on what my P&L says today, it's like my playbook, what I'm going to do tomorrow. If I don't know what my P&L is, I don't know what the plan is. I'm just basically hoping that things work out. Hashtag write this down. Hope is not a strategy. All right. So Nathan said, if 50% of your orders are takeaway, would you include packaging in your prime cost? Yes. So for my places that are takeout majority, there's two ways I do it. I either put it into my prime cost, or I build the packaging into my recipe cards. They call it Q Factor. Q Factor, a lot of my restaurants that do a lot of packaging, like my pizza places, we build in what's known as Q Factor into the recipes that account for the pizza boxes, the napkins, all the stuff that we normally include. Some of my restaurants, like my full service restaurants, that include maybe bread service, or if you're a Mexican restaurant, you have chips and salsa you give away. We include those costs, like a rough cost, into the recipe cards. So now I'm making up the difference in my food costing, because now my food costing is going to reflect my pricing strategy, was going to reflect on my P&L. Okay. You always use gross sales to calculate prime. Gross sales. Okay. And then also, when you have a really good P&L statement, a really nice P&L statement that looks really, really sexy and attractive and makes money, you're going to be able to attract investors, especially if everyone here is like thinking about like wants to be the next big Chick-fil-A or the next big franchise thing, or you want to franchise some stuff. You got to have proof of concept. I have restaurants now that have like 3 locations. I always say you got to get to 5. Once you get to 5, You want to make sure your P&Ls are solid across 5. Now you have proof of concept. Now you'll be easy. It's easy to get money. I've done this for tons of restaurants. I call it my restaurant empire builder program. When I get you up to that number, it's easy to scale. When you get to 5, it's easy to grow to 10, which is easy to grow to 50, which is easy to grow to 100. After you get to 5, it is just a formula, and it's easy to grow you from there. Fair enough? Cool. All right, let's talk about some common mistakes restaurants make in their P&L. So common mistakes. Number 1, ignore regular review. You got to review your P&Ls on a regular basis. I like weekly, but waiting too long to analyze it can be misled opportunities. Also, not addressing issues. Not comparing to previous periods. Every P&L should be measured against the previous P&L. We're looking for variations, or what they call variance. Failure is a huge thing here. A lot of people don't compare their current P&L to other P&Ls. And then again, most people focus solely on revenue. I understand you want to build sales, you build sales. I had a call this morning with someone in our accelerator program, and she's like, my dad is like so focused on top line, he doesn't understand that we're bleeding out money. I said, I know, this is a common thing in restaurants. So focused on revenue that they're not looking at the bottom line and they're bleeding out. Here's a question I would love to ask you, and type in the chat. Which one would you rather have? Would you rather have a $3 million restaurant doing 2% profit, or would you rather have a $1 million restaurant doing 20% profit? Type in the chat, 3 million or 1 million. Which one would you want? 3 million or 1 million? 3 million or 1 million? Yeah. See, you're smart. You want the $1 million restaurant. But see, most restaurant owners focus on, I want the $3 million restaurant. Yeah, $3 million restaurant at 2% sucks. Trust me. A lot of people starting the accelerator program are there. Right? It takes a lot to dig you out. It can be done, but it takes a lot of work. Just let you know. Yeah, I'd rather have a $1 million doing 20%. Right? Every single day. I mean, I'll take that. Take that money to the bank. Again, what are mistakes they make? Lack of expense breakdown. This goes back to your accountant giving you a QuickBooks, and not to bash accountants. All right, I'm going to bash accountants a little bit. Luke, sorry, I'm going to bash accountants. Do you have any friends who are accountants?
Nope.
Okay, good. We're going to bash accountants for a second.
Accountants
safe. Tend to be lazy because they don't want to do a lot of work. And by lazy, they lump shit together. When they lump shit together on your P&L, you don't know where the money's at. I had a guy the other day send me his P&L, and it was like, he had like other expenses, $80,000. I'm like, what the hell is that? And you know what he said? I don't know. Okay, I know where your problems are right away. You need a more detailed P&L. Let's get a detailed P&L. Find out where exactly is that $80,000, what it went to, because I don't know, and you got to have the information. Misinterpreting gross profit. Gross profit is understood, all right? Gross profit is not the same as net income. After you deduct your COGS, right? COGS, which is prime cost, owners need to account for operating expenses to get to actual profit, right? Ignoring variabilities. Many restaurants are variable. That means you have different seasons. You have different seasonality. You have different fluctuations in sales. You have ebbs and flows. You have to take into this variability, or else it's going to lead to inaccurate budgeting, inaccurate forecasting, which is going to lead to mismanagement of your numbers. Misjudging fixed and variable cost. You have to understand what fixed costs are, like rent, and variable cost, which is almost everything else. Mistaking one for the other can skew your understanding of profitability. Neglecting labor costs. Oh, labor cost is huge. You should have a labor budget for every department in your restaurant. My normal stats, or the normal framework I use, is this. For management, it should be 10% or under. Front of the house, which is my service team, usually I go from 6 to 7% of my budget should be for that. And in my kitchen should be around 11 to 12%. Now, when you look at your numbers, I'm going to tell you, you're going to realize that my numbers are way out of alignment with that. And when I tell you need to get down to that thing, you're going to say, it can't be done. I can't run with that little team. You can. It's just like you're just trying to fix the same problem with the same hammer, and you got to have different tools for it. And then overlooking non-operational expenses. This is stuff we don't look at, like interest or gains from assets. Ignoring these things truly distort your financial pictures. What other things do people do? Not accounting for seasonal fluctuality, Ignoring debt and interest. I mean, you got debt. It impacts your cash flow and profitability. Relying on gross margins alone. Again, gross margins, that's nice, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. Net income is the ultimate kind of, that's the scorecard. It's the what's on the bottom line. That's the game. Okay. Not considering industry averages. It's helpful to benchmark your P&L against industry averages, but you got to understand that your restaurant's going to be a little bit different. Your market's always going to be a little different. That's why you need a coach to help you interpret the data and understand what is the best financial projections for me. Okay. I'll give you some industry averages today. There's some great, there's a Baker Tilly has some great stuff. I'll show you some industry averages today too. All right. Not adapting to change. And of course, lack of action. Your P&L is a warning. When you see numbers on your P&L, it's telling you two things: what to do or what not to do. You have to read those warning signs. It's like if I'm speeding down the highway and I see a yellow sign that says warning construction, if I still go like super fast, something bad's going to happen. When you ignore the warning signs, bad shit happens. Okay. So understanding your P&L statement goes way beyond numbers. It involves careful analytics, understanding attention to detail, and you have to be willing to adapt and improve based on what you see. A lot of people can read a P&L. Very few people know how to fix a P&L, right? This is a huge, huge thing. Like most of my younger restaurant managers, they can read a P&L, and like I'll ask them, what's your prime cost? 68%. Okay, how are you going to fix it? I'm going to cut. Cut what? I'm gonna cut shifts, and I'm not gonna buy food. All right, that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Most people have a handful of ways to fix prime cost. I'm gonna show you there's a mind map we use in our accelerator program. It's gonna show you a whole different way to look at prime cost. Okay, so let's talk about benchmarks. Here's some common benchmarks, and this is like industry standards. Okay, industry standards, prime cost again, 65% or less. A table service restaurant, 60% or less. Food cost generally. Now, I hate using benchmarks for food costs because your food cost should be based on your theoretical. Theoretical is the cost of everything on your menu down to the penny. That's called theoretical. Actual food cost is what you buy and spend and what it goes against your sales. Remember, the national average on a restaurant in the United States, the gap between theoretical and actual food cost is 9%. Every month, someone calls me and says, Donald, my food cost is 30%. Is that good? I say, I don't know. I say, what do you mean you don't know? I'll say, what's your theoretical? And they'll go, I don't know. I'll say, that's the problem. If your theoretical is 28%, a 30% food cost is actually pretty damn good. You should be able to run about 2% above theoretical. Now, if your theoretical is 21, you got some work to do. Okay. Right. When I look at my P&Ls, I like to do a month is the minimum. If you really want to make money, if you're bleeding out money, you want to get on a weekly P&L because it gives you a faster time to make actions. Because it's like we talked about Luke, coaching the Super Bowl, and he didn't make any calls. And then, hey, how'd we lose? I don't know. Didn't make any calls. All right, cool. Like if you get your P&L once a month, here's what happens when you look at your P&L on a monthly basis. You overcompensate. So Luke hands me the P&L for our restaurant, and I look at it, and it's like, next month I'm looking, oh my God, we were way over budget on stuff. So what do? I start overcompensating. Cut, save. We got to save some money. What happens when I do that? Now I start cutting quality. I start cutting shifts. I start cutting customer service, guest experiences. I start really digging into my reputation, which is going to kill me. Right? You cannot go back and try to fix a bad P&L. You have to fix a bad P&L in the moment. That's why I like to look at my P&Ls on at least a weekly basis. My restaurants that are really bleeding out money, they look at their P&L almost on a daily basis. Right. So what I'm looking at here, there's some really good ones on here, like salary, management salaries, 10% or less of sales. Right? Alcohol, beverages, liquor should be around 18 to 20%. Bottled beer, 24 to 28. Draft beer, 15 to 8%. Wine, 35 to 45%, depending on your restaurant. Right? Full service for paper cost. A full service restaurant, 1 to 2%. Limited service, 3 to 4%. If you're like a pizza place, your paper costs are usually 4%, 5%. It's huge. Okay. Employee benefits. Now, this depends on your state. If you're in California or New York, I feel sorry for you. You're going to be around 7 or 8%. Most states, you're usually around 5 to 6%. Okay. All right. Very, 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 very powerful. And rent should always be 6%. Occupancy cost 10%. If your rent is higher than 6% of your sales, you are working for the landlord. And if your occupancy cost is 10% or higher, you're working for the landlord. You're bleeding out money. All right. Now, here's a good profitability standards. For a full service restaurant, you should be able to generate, if you're under $150 a square foot, you got a little chance of making profit. Right. Occupancy cost is my rent plus my like triple net plus my insurance, all the stuff that goes into occupancy cost. Right. So occupancy cost is everything it takes to run a restaurant. It doesn't usually, sometimes some places include utilities. Most of the time I put utilities in different section on my P&L, but mostly it's like triple net, cam fees, things like that are usually my occupancy cost. Okay. All right. It says right there, occupancy cost includes rent, cams, insurance, building costs, real estate taxes, personal property taxes. Many operators want to keep their occupancy costs at 8%. I say 10% is usually a good one. Okay. Rent 6% or less. That's a great one. So sales per square foot is a good one to start off with, like sales per square foot. Where am I at sales per square foot? Full service. If you're under $150 per square foot, you got little chance of generating profits. 150 to 250, break even up to 5%, and at 250 to 325 per square foot, 5 to 10% of sales. Right? Cool. I'm gonna download this this whole slide deck for you guys, and I'll give it to Luke so you can go back and there's a lot of information here. I'll give this to you guys today as a kind of a bonus too. I'll give you the slide deck so you can go back over the slide deck and look at this stuff. All right. So let's look at financial health. Financial health is huge. I would say you got to have a financial health check. Just like every time you go to the doctor once a year, you should have a health check, have your healthy kind of checkup every year. Well, every once in a while, you should have a financial health check. I like to do my financial health checks with my clients. Every quarter, we do a financial health check, right? And what do we look at? We look at a few things, okay? We look at, number one, we look at cash flow. We look at break even. We also understand our prime costs. So when I'm looking at this stuff, operational cost, I'm looking at break evens, and I'm looking at how can I measure and manage some of this stuff, right? A little bit better. So cash flow analysis is huge. Let's talk about cash flow. Hashtag write this down. Cash is king. Cash is king. The restaurants that do the best have capital reserves. That means they have cash. As the economy gets tighter, and it's getting tighter right now, a lot more restaurants are going out of business. If you notice, like Fuddruckers, I think Fuddruckers just closed. They're going to close all the restaurants by the end of the year. Old Country Buffet closing all their restaurants by end of the year. A lot of big groups are closing the majority of their restaurants. I think Red Lobster is closing 500 of them. It's huge, crazy things going on in the economy. Cash flow matters. Cash matters. Why do you want cash flow? Because liquidity. Having effective cash flow management ensures you have the liquid, you have the necessities, the cash to meet not only short-term obligations, but also prevent cash shortages. Also means when you got cash, it means you don't have to go to those high interest loans, those predatory loan people, and get loans to keep your business going. I have a guy right now, he's upside down with the predatory loans. He got these high interest loans, these 23, 24% loans, and it's killing him. His loan payments are each month are just like bleeding him out. And he just keeps getting more loans. I say, well, instead of getting more loans, let's fix your stuff, man. And so I finally got him off the getting loans to fix stuff. And why don't we just fix your operations so that we don't need the loans? And so it took a little while to get his mindset shifted. But once I got his mindset in the right place, I was able to get him in the right direction. Now we got some stability and we're digging out of the hole. It took a while. I always say, like, sometimes the hole you dig yourself into is not easy to get yourself out of. I had a client one time tell me, like, my restaurant's just in a rut. I said, the only difference between a rut and a grave is the depth. Got to watch it. Make sure that rut doesn't turn into a grave. Right. Operational stability is cash flow. Also strategic investments. When you got cash, when restaurants go out of business, you got opportunities to get locations, get equipment. It's really, really nice. So let's understand some operational cost. Operational cost encompasses the full spectrum of expenses that keep your restaurant running like a well-oiled machine. Okay, these are the associations with food and beverage. They encompass inventory management, labor, utilities, rent, marketing, maintenance costs, and other things. The biggest thing you want to understand about operational costs is it impacts everything else. It also impacts what we call pricing strategy. You have to understand you have to have a pricing strategy. And here's the best thing in the world I will tell you. And please, if you're doing this, stop it. Never base your pricing strategy on what someone else in the market is pricing it for. I'll ask restaurant owners all the time, how'd you get the price of that dish? Well, that's what the place down the street sells it for. I say, how do you know they make money? I don't. Then why are you pricing it like them? Every restaurant has different operational structures, right? Your P&L is different than a restaurant down the street. You could have identical concepts. You could have a Mexican restaurant on one end of town, and there could be another one, same, almost identical menu across town. But because of rent, because of neighborhood, because of things like that, because of your infrastructure, because of your loans, because of your debt, your P&Ls are going to be different. You cannot compare apples to oranges. You have to compare apples to apples. That's why having your P&L on a weekly basis is so powerful. I can compare week to week and see where I need to improve, where I need to grow, and where I need to be better. Fair enough? Got to have a clear grasp of your operational costs, and you have to identify those areas where you can save money. This is huge, huge, huge. So how we do this? Number one, we have to calculate break even. Anybody here ever calculate their break even before? Type in the chat if you have typed in either yes or no. Type in in the chat if you calculated your break even before. Yes, yes, yes. A break even is huge. If you don't know your break even, start with that. Okay. It sets the foundation for sustaining profitability. If I don't know my break even, I'm just kind of throwing darts in the dark, just hoping I hit a target, and that's not going to work. So I have to keep it kind of dialed in and keep it really, really set. So metrics are the game, and profitability is a game that's played with setting up myself for break even is first. If you're at break even, okay, it's not good. You want to be better than break even. So let's figure out how we do this and how it matters. So when I understand break even, it gives me a sound decision matrix. I know my break even, and empowers me to make informed decisions about pricing, cost control, and also sales targets. Most people never take into account their break even when they're costing out their menu. That's a big mistake. Most people don't use their break even to help set financial goals. If you don't have financial goals, again, you're just hoping up. You open the door and hope that we're busy. Hashtag write this down. Hope is not a strategy, not one you want to invest in, at least. Okay. And also helps me with known as risk management. I have to understand what my current revenue is compared to my break even, so I can assess the restaurant's financial health and also our potential risk. So the formula for break even is quite simple, right? You got fixed cost, you got selling units, you got variable cost per unit. So break even point is basically my fixed cost with my selling price per unit, also my variable cost. This formula calculates the number of units you need to sell. So basically, how much do I need to make a day? How much units, which basically sales, to cover all my fixed cost and variable cost. And that results in what we call a break even or a zero profit scenario. So if all my expenses, my variable cost, my fixed cost is a certain amount, I'd have to have this amount of money. If that money covers all my costs, then it's called break even. So I basically break even. It's 0, 0, 0, which is cool. All right. That's break even is good to know, but we don't want to be break even. So let's say you're a casual diner and you calculated your fixed cost to be $10,000 a month. Each meal that you sell has a food cost of $8. And so that's the food cost. And then you sell each meal for $20. This is like general break even 101. So rounded up, your break even point is approximately, I need 834 meals per day to break even, right? For the month. That covers all my fixed and variable costs. And now you can do a monthly break even. You can do a weekly break even. I usually tend to do it on a monthly basis at first. After I do it on a monthly basis, I might break it down, but I need to understand what happens. Now, what happens when your break even is too high? So I'm the kind of person like, all right, break even is too high. Donald, great. How do I fix that? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to tell you. If your break even is too high, number one, there's a couple things that happen. The break-even point is a level of sales, which the total cost is not going to result. I mean, you're not even going to break even. You're going to basically lose money. So when your break even is too high, you're going to be bleeding. What does that happen? It gives you financial strain, right? Your restaurant's going to struggle to cover its operating costs. This is where people get behind on their bills, their payments to their vendors. It's where they get in the hole with that stuff. Also, you can reduce your flexibility. If you have a high break-even point, it's going to limit your ability to adapt. It's going to also limit your ability to invest. It's going to have you put some pricing pressure. Most restaurants, when they find their break-evens too high, they overcompensate and they start raising prices crazy. Okay. Sometimes when you raise your prices crazy and not logically, but emotionally, because you're panicking, you're going to basically reposition your brand out of the market, and you're going to reposition where people won't come to your place. So a lot of times I've seen restaurants have this like faulty thinking that, all right, I'm going to raise my prices to cover my costs. Well, then they raise their prices so high that no one comes to the restaurant, and they just kill themselves. And also is going to blow you out of the market. There's certain things we have market driven and price driven. You have to understand, where am I at in my market? Am I market driven or price driven? Does the market demand what I do, or do I own the market? So how do we fix this? Number one, you got to reduce operating costs. This is where you have to identify cost saving measures that can implement without compromising quality. Never cut cost if it's going to compromise quality. You might have to renegotiate with your vendors. You might have to change the schedules around. Most of the time, I will tell you, it usually has to do with schedules. Most people don't maximize their schedules effectively. Menu engineering. We talked about this a couple workshops ago. Menu engineering is a game changer that's going to really help you determine which dishes have the high profit margin and popularity. And then we can use menu design to really accent that and take advantage of that stuff. I could also increase sales volumes, right? There's only 4 ways to increase sales. Only 4. You guys want to write these down. There's only 4 ways to increase sales. Number 1, I can get new people to come to my restaurant. That's what Luke and Michael do. That's SkyTel. That's marketing, right? I can get people that come to my restaurant to come back more often. That's loyalty programs. I can get people who come to my restaurant to buy more. That's called upselling, downselling, and cross-selling. And I could raise prices, but that's the 4th one. I usually don't recommend that one. I always say focus on the first 3, right? I could diversify my revenue streams, maybe catering, maybe online orders, maybe, I don't know, maybe I could actually, there's some kind of revenue stream I could generate. Sometimes retail is great, all kinds of great things. I have a lot of people in the summers do like grill kits, all kinds of fun things that offset their expenses. My steakhouses usually sometimes have an online butcher shop. It's a really, really great way to do stuff. Okay. Review my pricing strategy. You should always quarterly look at your pricing strategy and review it. Should optimize your resources. That means your staff, especially during slow periods. The most powerful KPI you can look at for this is called RevPAS, revenue per available seat per hour. Sometimes I might be able to renegotiate my fixed costs, maybe renegotiate leases, contracts, other fixed costs to kind of reduce my financial obligations. Okay. And then also make sure I'm investing wisely. Energy efficient appliances, lower utility bills. There's all kinds of things. Investing in training actually reduces expenses. I don't know. A lot of people think it's counterintuitive. Donald, if I spend more money on training, I'm going to spend more money. No, you're going to have less mistakes. That actually saves you money in the long term. Invest in training. The challenge for restaurant owners, and here's the thing, it's not your numbers. It's usually you. It's your ego and your pride. Resistant to change. Successful owners have this great pride. They don't need help. I can figure it out on my own. Well, if you could figure it out on your own, you would have done so by now. Right? Reluctance to seek help. That's again, inflated ego. I don't need a coach. I don't need anyone to tell me how to run my restaurant. I know how to run a restaurant. Well, what's your profitability say? If your profitability is 18% or higher, trust me, you know how to run a great restaurant. The average member in our accelerator program runs an average profit of 19.8. That does not happen by luck. That happens by 3 things: tools, training, and coaching. And then overestimating market demand. I did this with my first restaurant. I'm going to open a restaurant because I have experience. My food's great. Everyone's going to come to the place and flood the place. Did not happen. Okay. Got to understand the realities of the market demand. especially if you're a new restaurant, you are not positioned in the market yet. And to position yourself in the market takes marketing. They have to understand who you are and what you do. If you don't do that effectively, no one's going to come to your place, no matter how great your food is. Addressing these issues requires open-mindedness. You got to realize that no business is immune to challenge. Okay. Be open to feedback, advice, suggestions for improvement. Data-driven decision making. That's why I love P&Ls. The data tells me which direction to go. Adaptability. Prices hinder adaptability. I have to stop clinging on to past things like we always did this way. I've done this for 20 years. I'm not changing. You got to get rid of that old mindset. Got to be humble. Got to be willing to accept my mistakes and make adjustments. This was another huge thing I had to get over when I had my first restaurant. My ego, my pride, and denial. I was going to go down with the ship. But luckily, a businessman tucked me out of it and said, "You're in your own way." And I was like, damn, you're right. And it was just when I had that moment of clarity, it's like, yeah, you know what? This is all my fault. Right. And then get professionals. Right. That's what we're here for. Financial experts, get really good accountants. The best advice I got from my first business mentor was never go cheap on lawyers and accountants. They will make you money hands over fist. And I would add to that, don't go cheap on marketing. Get a good marketing team. Right? A lot of bad marketing people out there. All right. KPIs. There's the critical 6, we call them for KPIs. There's 20, 30 different KPIs you could look at. The critical 6 are the ones I look at on a daily basis. These are the critical 6. I look at guest check average every single day. This reveals the amount of guest spend per visit. You want to monitor this metrics and see how can I improve this. Every day you want to ask, how can I make it better? Right? RevPASH, we talk about RevPASH a lot. Revenue per available seat per hour. That quantifies the revenue generated per available seat. It helps me maximize my seating capacity and also optimize my table turnover when you understand RevPASH. Prime cost, again, prime cost is huge. I have to understand prime cost. Food cost and beverage cost together. Discounts and comps. Most people don't check their discounts and comps and they bleed out money. You got to understand where the discounts and comps are, and you have to have a budget or a metric to measure it and manage it. Cash flow, again, I got to know what the cash is, what cash is coming in, what cash is going out. I have to manage my cash flow on a daily basis. And then I like marketing impressions. Now, Luke might argue with me. That's fine. I think impressions really good. A lot of times I find that impressions can translate into dollars, depending on the impressions, depending if I'm marketing the right people. Like Luke will tell you like up front, like they can easily it can get you 1 million views, but if they're in Indonesia, it doesn't really help you out. It has to be the right views in your market, but he can actually identify your ideal target audience. They can actually filter out, run selective targeted ads to your ideal person to get the right impressions and run right in front of the right people. And that's the game changer right there. Most people look at marketing as like just organic or views is like the number one. Oh, I've had tons of people. I got 1 million views on my TikTok. How are your sales? The same? Okay, that's great. 1 million views is great, man. But did it translate into money? If it can't translate into money, don't worry about it. Measure what can be managed and what can be improved on. Let's talk real quick about guest check average. Guest check average is my favorite thing. Guest check average, I have a little workshop I teach inside the Accelerator program. It's called the Order Optimizer. And the Order Optimizer is about an hour workshop. And the Order Optimizer will teach you how to maximize your guest check average. Through menu engineering, we're going to monitor guest check average. We're also going to use 3 techniques: upselling, downselling, and cross-selling. By using these 3 techniques and training the team every day, I can definitely move the needle on my guest check average, which is going to influence my profitability overall. Okay. This is a game changer. Okay. Instagram likes don't pay the bills. Nathan, that's it. True that. Right. RevPASH, again, it's going to help me optimize my seating. It's also going to help me effectively schedule my staff by understanding my RevPASH. RevPASH is a game changer when you understand RevPASH at a deep level, right? Prime cost, we've talked about this already. Prime cost is 2 things. It's going to tell me about how I'm measuring my labor effectively. Also, my COGS management, my cost of goods. Prime cost really, really helps me track it down. Now, again, most people, when they're looking at prime cost, they know maybe 5, maybe 10 ways to manage prime cost. Over the years, I have mapped out all the different ways to improve prime cost. And I've identified 103 different tactics to improve prime cost. And we teach this in the accelerator program. We teach you how to access all different 103 tactics. So now you have a lot more tools. Because remember, if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So if I give you more ways to look at your prime cost and more ways to narrow down, how can I fix it? I can use this tool. I can try this tool. I can try this thing. This is the best way to do it. Right? Cool. Right. Discounts and comps. Again, you got to look at those discounts and comps. Discounts and comps help me measure my profit protection. Discounts and comps can attract guests, but I want to make sure they're not eroding my profitability. I don't mind using a little bit of stuff to get like new people in the door, but I don't want people addicted to discounts and comps because they only then come back for the discounts and comps. Cash flow is king. If you don't measure the cash flow, you're dead. Expense management, capital investments. And then we talked about marketing impressions a little bit. I like marketing impressions. I like to track my assessments. I know Luke and Michael with SkyTel, they do really good campaign assessments. They will give you detailed reports on your campaign to tell you what's working, what's not working, and they'll also give you recommendations to improve it. They're huge data freaks. Those two are like data nerds. I'm telling you right now. Those guys love the data. And they tell you because the data points to which direction to go, which is really, really critical. Okay. All right. A lot of stuff today. Okay. A lot of stuff. Let me tell you about a place called Portofino's. Portofino's was once a really popular place I worked with. Now, like a lot of restaurant owners, they didn't have an accurate P&L statement. Their break-even point was too high, and they had dwindling cash flow. So what do we do? Number one, challenges, lack of awareness or lack of accurate financial data, lack of an accurate P&L, high break-even point, cash flow drain. So what do we do? All right. Solution, establish financial clarity. That's the first thing we do. So we got a consultant to come in. We had a really great accountant come in. We got together. We looked at some of the P&Ls. We got some really accurate P&Ls together. We established new financial data, new financial targets. We took all that stuff. We redefined the menu. We did some menu engineering. We understand what the food cost was. We understood what the high margin items were, low margins. We redid the menu to make it more profitable. We did the menu pricing based on being a strategic brand, not just trying to compete with everyone else. You don't want to be commodity pricing. Commodity pricing is the worst thing you do. That's where everyone competes on price. The fast food chains do this all the time. All right, the burger wars, you heard us, or the chicken sandwich wars, or the pizza wars. Everyone competes on that. Then finally, we got into cost management. Had a cost-cutting strategy, reduced unnecessary overhead, had a really great marketing strategy, got more impressions, got guest engagement involved, started investing in local target marketing, really leverage our social media marketing, email campaigns, text message marketing, all that stuff. And then we streamlined operations. The end result, yeah, this works anywhere in the world. Canada, Mexico, South America, Europe, Dubai. I've done this everywhere in the world. So what we did, within 90 days, we got the P&L cleared up. Alex, who was the owner, could make now informed decisions. We lowered the break-even point by changing up some of the dynamics. We improved cash flow, and we actually increased guest engagement. Okay. He went from losing money to slowly climbing out of the hole. And I can honestly tell you, he eventually got to 20% profit. And that was like his peak, got to 20% profitability. He was like in the hole, bleeding out, and then we turned it around. So today I'm going to give you a download. It's going to be a great download for you. Here's your gift for attending today. I'm going to give you a little ebook, 9 ways to make more money in 90 days. Stop struggling, start thriving in the new economy. Okay. Sound good? I will also give you this slide deck so you can go back over and look at all the data, all the information I gave you today. You can look at it, take it apart. And before we leave, let me ask you one simple question. If I dropped you off out in the middle of the woods and I said, hey, I'm going to drop you out here in the middle of this forest, this wilderness, and hope that you make it back to civilization, would you be able to make it back? Most people would say, nah, probably not, especially if you drop me off in the middle of the night. But here's the thing, if I gave you a map and a compass and I showed you how to use the map and how to use the compass, you could navigate back every single time. Well, this is exactly what coaching does. For the last 14 years, my coaching programs have helped over 2,800 restaurants, almost 2,900 restaurants, basically just like yours. Coaching provides you with two things, not only the tools and the training, but also gives you accountability is the biggest thing, and new tools. The thing is, right now, you're looking at the same problem with the same tools you are trying to solve. And Einstein had a great quote: you cannot solve a problem on the level of thinking that created it. The problems that you have right now were created by the level of thinking that you have right now. To change your problems, to elevate you to get out of these things, you have to change your thinking. That's where the accelerator program comes in place. The accelerator program is my guaranteed roadmap that has helped, I mean, again, thousands of restaurants. When you follow the framework works. And you get tons of content. I mean, tons and tons of stuff. Seminars, workshops, tools, downloads, everything you can think of that's going to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. Everything you need is thrown into the accelerator program. Everything you need. Plus, not only do you get all these resources, which is online training, all the downloads you need, but you're also going to get a one-on-one coaching call with one of my certified restaurant coaches. It's over 200 hours of information, 380 hours or 380 downloads available. And all you got to do is just speak to one of the Restaurant Growth support team. That's it. That's it. Any questions?